Good afternoon. My name is Hugh Sung, assistant of the Oral History Program on board the Battleship New Jersey, which is docked here in Camden, New Jersey. Today is Friday, July 20th, 2018, and we are on board the Battleship New Jersey, and our interview guest is Randy Lee Bergman from Cartersville, Georgia. Mr. Bergman was a veteran on board the Battleship New Jersey. He served on the Battleship New Jersey from 1982 to 1985, as well as numerous other ships during his career with the Navy. So, Mr. Bergman, welcome back to the Battleship New Jersey.
Thank you.
How are you feeling?
Pretty good.
All right, very good. Okay, let's begin by asking, what is your current age?
I'm 64.
Okay. And when did you join the Navy?
September 16th, 1971.
Okay. And you enlisted, correct?
I enlisted.
Okay.
It was during the Vietnam conflict.
Okay. Do you remember how old you were when you enlisted in the Navy?
I was 18 years and 1 day.
Okay. What was your inspiration to joining the Navy?
Vietnam. The draft. The draft was actually, if it hadn't been for the draft, I probably wouldn't have joined the Navy. And it's pretty much, it may have been the best thing that ever happened to me in my life.
Okay. So where was boot camp?
Great Lakes.
Okay. And anything you remember from there?
I thought it was too easy. And it was very cold. Both of those I remember. I didn't think it was a whole lot of physical stuff, but it was extremely cold. And that's probably why it wasn't quite as much physical stuff as there could have been.
Okay. And what was your rate?
I was a machinist mate fireman.
Okay. So after boot camp, you went to A school, correct?
That's correct.
And you trained for that?
That's where I became the machinist mate fireman.
Okay.
Yes.
Where was A school?
I was a seaman recruit coming out of boot camp, actually. A school was Great Lakes.
Okay. So one station unit training, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Anything you remember from A school?
Not much.
Okay. All right. So after A school, where do you remember going?
USS Guadalcanal, LPH-7, helicopter carrier out of Norfolk, Virginia.
Okay. Anything you remember from that ship?
It was big. I went on board there as an MM3 and spent quite a bit of time learning the ship and learning how the engine room worked.
Okay. What were your duties there?
I started out as a regular machinist mate, and I stood throttleman, I stood generator watch, I stood evaporator watch, and I stood top watch. I left there. I was a second class petty officer, and I was basically the engine room LPO when I left there.
Okay. And then you went to the Samson, correct?
I went to the Samson. Actually, the little story behind that. The detailer called me up and said, Bergman, he said, it's time for you to transfer. Where would you like to go? And I said, well, I'm here in Norfolk, Virginia. My parents live in Pennsylvania. The speed limit back then was 55 miles an hour. I told them I'm spending all most of my weekends traveling back and forth between Norfolk and Pennsylvania. I either wanted to be close enough that I could go home every night or far enough away I didn't even think about home. So he came up with the perfect ship. It was a USS Robinson that was undergoing an overhaul in Philadelphia Naval Shipyard, and upon its completion of the overhaul, it was going to Mayport, Florida.
Okay. Your rate was still the same, correct?
I made, actually, when I took the orders to Robinson, he swapped me with a first class, an E6. I was an E5. And he swapped me with that guy who swapped orders, and the ship accepted me as an MM2 that was going to be MM1 eligible on the next exam. I took the exam and passed. I made MM1 on the Robinson.
All right. So what was
On there, I was basically I was started out as the after engine room LPO. Then I became the main control LPO. Then I became well, basically the senior chief left, and I was the LCPO.
Okay. So where'd you go after that?
USS U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis,
Okay.
Maryland.
All right.
I worked in the engineering department. I taught basically all the different labs that they teach the midshipmen. We had a basic introduction to EN 100 series, EN 300 series for third year guys. I also taught thermal labs. I basically qualified for all the labs that were on the lab deck of the engineering building, Rick Overhaul on the Naval Academy.
Okay. And so after that, you were receiving orders to go to New Jersey, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
One day I was at the Naval Academy, and the head detailer called me up and said, "Hey Bergman, what do you have over there? Do you have any training aids or anything?" I said, "We have a guy over here. He's a great guy, but he was a submarine auxiliaryman. He never got to see the engine room or anything like that. Do you have any training aids?" I said, "Sure, send him over." So he came over. He was a detailer. He had taken a chief's test 3 or 4 times, I guess, and never passed. So he came over, went through it with him a day. It might have been 2 days, and he passed the test. So he said, "Hey, when you get ready to transfer, come see me. I'll hook you up." So I thought we were going back to Mayport, Florida, because my wife and I really love Florida. Come time to transfer, and I went over there, and I'm going through stacks and stacks and stacks of wrecks. Nothing for Mayport, Florida. And I thought, geez, I thought I was going to thought I had a hookup here, but there was no hookup. And a guy had called up, a chief petty officer had called up. The USS New Jersey at the time, it was part of Reagan's 600 ship buildup, and it was the first battleship that came out, and basically the crew was entirely handpicked. So I listened to the conversation between a detailer and his chief, and I heard him tell the guy a couple times. He said, "Sorry, chief, I don't have any more billets." So upon the conclusion of that phone call, and he put the phone down, and we were talking, I said, "Gee, I talked a little bit." I said, "Hey, I heard about the New Jersey coming out." And he said, "Yeah, it's going to be in Long Beach, California." I said, "But gee, I've never been to Long Beach, California." And I said, "Never done a pre-com crew." He says, "Do you want to go?" I said, "I thought you just said there's no more billets, chief." He said, "There wasn't for him, but if you want to go, I got one for you." I guess the guy didn't meet the selection requirement or whatever. But so I ended up going from the Naval Academy to the New Jersey, reported aboard New Year's Day in 1982. I was assigned, I had made chief while I was at the Naval Academy, so I was assigned as LCPO for number 3 engine room, main control. And that's where I had my duties. I qualified engineering officer of the watch, one of 2 enlisted guys that qualified for engineering officer of the watch back in the day. And since I had main control as my main space, I ended up being the special evolutions EAL for any time we were restricted maneuvering for entering and leaving port, going alongside another ship, general quarters, so on and so forth. Because of that, I think I got to be pretty well known as far as operating a plant and everything I get, and I was encouraged to apply for the limited duty officer program. Navy LDOs, basically they take guys from enlisted ranks and promote them to officers, and although it didn't happen while I was on board Jersey, the application process, all that went, the interview process, all that went in. I got selected while I was on my next ship. So
Okay. So going back to New Jersey, did you come to the ship during the commissioning ceremony?
I came to the ship before the commissioning ceremony.
Okay. What was your first reaction when you saw the New Jersey?
It was huge. You know, I mean, it was sort of, I don't want to say majestic. You know, I mean, it was in the shipyard, but you know, the big guns are something like you've never seen anywhere else, and it was awesome. I'd never been on a ship I'd been on ships with 2 engine rooms and 2 fire rooms, but I'd never been on a ship that had 4 engine rooms and 4 fire rooms, because basically this is a same configuration as a midway class carrier, the engineering plant. So that was new. Also, the 4 shafts and the you know, we had 32 line shaft bearings, which was, you know, I think on the Guadalcanal we might have had 8 total, but we only had 1 shaft on there.
Okay. Did you attend the commissioning ceremony?
Absolutely. I'm trying to remember exactly where I was during the commissioning ceremony. I don't really recall, to be honest with you.
Right.
If we were steaming the plant, I would have probably been down in the plant, but I don't remember.
Okay.
I'm sure I was topside, because I do remember the president coming and speaking, and I could, you know, from my standpoint, I couldn't really see him that well.
Okay, so after the commissioning ceremonies, you went out to sea?
Well, we did some routine operations, a little bit of training, and then we went on a deployment in 1983. We were going on a shakedown cruise. I want to say we left in June. I believe it was June. We left. It was supposed to be all the best ports in the Western Pacific. We were going to go to, you know, naturally we started out in Pearl Harbor. We went to Subic Bay, Singapore. We went to Australia, Busan, Korea. We were hitting all the best ports. We went to Pattaya Beach, Thailand, and then there was some trouble in Central America, so we got called off our cruise. We were told to report to Subic Bay. We went to Subic Bay. We took on stores and ammunitions. We headed to Pearl Harbor, where we took on more stores and munitions. We went from there off the coast of, at the time, I believe it was Nicaragua, Panama, and El Salvador. We steamed around there for a while. It might have been, I don't know, 3 weeks or something. We thought we were going home after that. And we got the word to go ahead, and we were going to go through the Panama Canal and meet up with and refuel, and then if we got orders, we could possibly depart with the aircraft carrier Kennedy. So we went through the Panama Canal, which again, that was, you know, on the New Jersey. That's different than any other ship, because the Jersey's 108 feet wide and the canal's 110 feet wide. So it's like, you know, just about shoehorn the thing through there. We got over the other side, we refueled, we got underway with the Kennedy, and we started out, I think we were doing 27 knots all the way from the time we left Panama to the time we got to Beirut. I remember going through the Straits of Messina at night, which is very heavy traffic, and we went through there at night at 27 knots, and I never expected that, and I never expected to steam 27 knots the whole time. It's quite a bit. Excuse me.
You need to take a break?
I could use some water.
Okay, we'll take a break. All right, we're continuing our interview now. So, Mr. Bergman, so you were sailing around the Pacific prior to reaching Beirut, correct?
Oh, absolutely. We sailed around the Pacific, then we went back to Pearl Harbor, and then went to the Panama Canal, passed through the Panama Canal, went through the Gulf of Mexico, into the Atlantic, through the Mediterranean, off the coast of Beirut.
Okay, so during those times, when you were at Pearl Harbor, do you remember passing by the Arizona?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I actually, I think probably the first time going through, I went through the Arizona Memorial. That was quite a quite a deal to go through there. And as one of the other ports I forgot to mention was when we had gotten to Japan, I actually got to go to Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So, seeing both ends like that, to me, that was both ends of the war. Having seen where the bombs were dropped, and having seen on the other side where the bombs were dropped. You know, so it sort of gave me a connection.
Okay. Anything you remember from those ports?
The one thing I remember when I went to where the bombs were dropped in Japan, I thought that whoever had control of those weapons in the future should certainly go to those sites and be fully aware of the damage that they were doing before they actually got to put their finger on the trigger.
Okay. Any other ports you remembered, like Australia?
Australia was sort of that was a big deal. We got into Australia, and they had I was married, so it didn't apply to me, but they had long lines. I mean, they had a lot of tours and stuff like that. They had a lot of, I think, parents brought their daughters down to meet the American sailors. Sort of different than what I had been used to.
Do you remember passing the equator and going through the shellback and polywog ceremonies?
Yes, I remember that. In fact, I was in M Division, and our M Division queen actually won the beauty contest. But I guess I was a hard case as far as going through shellback initiation. And I actually did get initiated shellback on the New Jersey. Later on, I got to be a golden shellback on another ship.
That's one heck of a ceremony, right?
Oh yeah. Back, especially, I would imagine if we do it today, we'd probably have tempered it down a little bit.
Okay. You didn't see any of that in the newer ships you served in, did you?
Shellback initiation?
Yes.
Yeah, but you got to remember, I retired in 1999.
Oh, okay. All right. So is there anything else you remember before you went to Beirut?
From the Jersey before?
Yes.
No, it was a straight shot.
Okay.
I want to say it was probably 11 days at 27 knots. I may be wrong, but that's basically leaving Panama, going through the Gulf of Mexico, the whole Atlantic Ocean, the whole Mediterranean Sea, and then off the coast of Beirut on the far end there.
Okay. So when you got the news you were going to Beirut, how did the crew feel?
Well, seeing as how we thought we were going home, after being off the coast of Nicaragua and Panama and stuff like that, knowing that you thought the end was near, because I think it was anyway, there was a holiday coming up, and we thought, hey, we'll definitely be going home on this holiday. And one holiday came, and another one came, and basically the the thing with Beirut is we didn't know when we were going home. Excuse me. Everybody was pretty well convinced we'd be gone home by Christmas. You know, we'd be home for Christmas, and Bob Hope came over for Christmas. We had had a couple visits from prior to that. Wayne Newton and the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders had come aboard. So it's just a continuation out there day after day, not knowing when you're going home.
Okay.
Probably the one thing that split the time was in October of 1983 when they blew up the Marine barracks in Beirut. One of the fellow chief petty officers was killed in that explosion. He had been ashore fixing a radar and didn't make it back that night, so he was coming back that morning, and when they exploded the barracks. So that was a sort of a timeline thing. That was in October, if I remember correctly. I believe it was probably October 23rd. It's been a long time. And then the next big day, I mean, like I said, we had Wayne Newton, we had Bob Hope, Kathy Lee Crosby, Brooke Shields, Ann Gillian, a whole host of people had come through with Bob. And then the next big day that I really remember was February 8th, 1984. We fired 288 rounds, a 16-inch, into Beirut. Basically, they've been flying some recon missions and stuff, trying to heat up get the missile sites to lock onto the airplanes, and then so they identify their location. And basically, we're trying to take out. My understanding, being an engineer, was we were taking out missile sites at the time.
Okay. So just to backtrack to the beginning of the Beirut crisis, you heard about the Marine barracks bombing while you're on the ship, right?
Yes. Yeah, we were pretty much aware of it.
Okay. That chief was Michael Gorczynski. Is that?
Yes, it does. ETC.
Okay. Did you ever knew him personally?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So shortly after the bombing, how did the crew feel? That's all right. Sorry.
I think that's, at that point, I think we wanted to retaliate.
Yeah, that's kind of like what a lot of people said.
Yeah.
All right.
And I know I want to say December 8th, we actually fired for the first time, if I recall correctly. But that was, that wasn't like, I mean, on February 8th, it was just one after another. I mean, for hours.
Okay. You were in the engineering spaces while the guns
Absolutely.
were firing, right?
All the time.
Okay. So you felt the concussion of those guns firing?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't come aboard the Battleship and fire a 16-inch gun and not feel it. And you can always tell.
Okay.
I can do. Now you mentioned that, when we came out, when we first recommissioned, and they went out and we tested the guns. We tested the 16-inch guns. The ship had been laid up since Vietnam War, and every piece of dirt, corrosion, what have you, inside the ventilation system was knocked loose. So the high velocity air would spray this stuff. If you were in front of a vent, you had it all coming out of the vent at you. So.
Right. Now, sentiment from the crew. There were some people questioning about the accuracy of the guns, but Marines on the ground said that as long as New Jersey was there, more lives were saved. because they wouldn't attack the Marines again. Did you hear anything like that?
I've heard from a lot of guys that were in Vietnam, especially, that when the New Jersey came in, that they could hear the shells going overhead, and it sounded like a freight train going over their head while they were on the land, and it would certainly quiet things down.
Okay. Anything else you remember from Beirut?
Not anything
Okay.
notable.
All right. Now, you recall the USO show being on board, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember watching it from the ship?
Yeah, I actually did get up to see part of the USO show, but I was a chief petty officer at the time, and Bob Hope actually came to the chief's mess with his crew, and they changed clothes back there and everything. I remember seeing Brooke Shields. She was 16 years old, and she changed in one of the rooms back at that chief's mess. I actually talked to Brooke's mom for it seemed like a half hour. I'm not sure how long it was at any time, but it seemed like a half hour, and just got to talk to her. Bob Hope was there talking with all the chiefs. It was real friendly.
Okay. Other than Brooke Shields' mother, did you talk to any other celebrities?
Talked to Bob.
Okay.
But and George Kirby was there. For some reason, Kathy Lee Crosby. I think I got to talk to her. She stuck in my mind more than any of the others.
Okay. You don't remember any of the conversations?
Not really.
Okay.
Would have been small talk, I'm sure.
All right. But you were like just feet away from them, right?
Yeah.
So you got to be really close to them.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm sure that was an honor within itself.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it gave you an appreciation for Bob Hope and what he had done over all the years, going out and entertaining the troops.
Oh yeah, from World War II all the way to first person Gulf War.
Sure enough.
Yeah. All right. So after leaving Beirut, you were still on New Jersey until 1985, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Anything else you remember during those times?
I guess my transfer off of New Jersey.
Okay.
I was supposed to go to a school and shore duty, and my wife wasn't really fond of the traffic in California, and she wanted to go back to the East Coast. So I called the detailer and said, "Hey, what do you have on the East Coast?" And he says, "Man, can't transfer anybody across country right now." He said, "Funds are so tight, just can't do it." And then he said, "Well, we have one ship that just lost their master chief and their chief, and if you want to go to that ship, it's out of Charleston. They're deploying next week. If you want to go there, I can actually send you there." And I had hard orders on a ship within about 3 hours after that conversation with him. I'd called my wife, and I think it was like 9 o'clock in the morning. I called the detailer back and said, "Sure, I'll take it." And he he didn't waste any time getting those orders out.
Okay. Do you remember meeting any commanding officers, like the captain?
Sure.
Okay. Which one sticks out for you?
Well, we had two while I was aboard. We had Captain Fogarty, and then we had Captain Fogarty was ideal for the commissioning and all the pomp and circumstance, and the dealing with the president, the whole 9 yards. And then when we got to Beirut, we got Richard Milligan. They got nicknames, but I guess I probably shouldn't. We call him Battleship Bill and Dreadnought Dick, both after battleships. And Captain Milligan was more of I think he was selected to come over there because he was more of a tactical guy. And if you were going to fire, you wanted him on board. In fact, later on, he actually did, when the Iowa had their mishap in their gun turret. He was actually, I guess, one of the naval experts that had conducted the investigation on board the Iowa. And he's actually the guy that gave me the final recommendation for that sent me from enlisted to officer. So, I sort of hold him special,
All right. So you met both captains in person?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so in continuing with your Navy career, what did you do after leaving New Jersey?
After I left New Jersey, I went on Joseph Hughes, and that's actually funny story. And a funny story. I told you about how quickly I got the orders, and actually, my wife. We weren't ready to move or anything like that, so my wife was left with the three kids. Had to move across. The Navy moved her. Put everything in a moving van, so she had to drive across the country with the three kids. We moved directly into Navy housing, so she was able to transfer into Navy housing. And the whole time I was on the cruise, because I actually, after the orders, I probably had 2 or 3 days. I jumped on a motorcycle and rode across the United States on my motorcycle with my sea bag on the back of gold-winning motorcycle. Yeah.
Okay.
Went on that. Reported on board to Joseph Hughes on a Wednesday. They were getting underway Monday. Had quite a bit to do to get underway. Then we went on board her and we went on a Unitas 86 cruise and circumnavigated. Actually, it was 85, Unitas 85, and circumnavigated South America. And then after we left Brazil, we went to WATSI, or West African Training Cruise, and did I guess 4 or 5 countries in West Africa, doing some community relations type, dropping off medical supplies, food, so on and so forth.
Okay. Is this before you became a commissioned officer?
Yes.
Okay.
I want to say we were probably on our way back, and that's when I got word that I had been selected. So I was a senior chief machinist mate on there, and I finished up the cruise. We had a short time in port, and I got commissioned. From there, I went to what they call LDO, NDOC, or knife and fork school. They teach you, how enlisted guys should, learn, basically teach you the ins and outs of being in the wardroom. And from there, I got orders back to the West Coast, USS Robinson DG-12 out of San Diego. And we, went back there. I went there first as a material officer, and then became the main propulsion assistant. I do remember during the cruise, we were on the Westpac, and the chief engineer had a reason to go on emergency leave, and the captain basically said that he could go, and I'd be the interim chief engineer. It was like 30 days or something like that.
Okay. All right. So your Navy career extended all the way to 1999, correct?
It sure did.
Oh, okay. Anything you remember during those times, such as the Persian Gulf War?
I was actually chief engineer on the board of USS LaSalle, and the LaSalle was the command ship for Common East for. Basically, they call it the Great White Ghost off the Arabian coast, and so I was there for Desert Shield and Desert Storm, and then we brought the LaSalle had been over in the Gulf over in Bahrain, I believe for like 11 years, and we brought LaSalle back to Norfolk to do an overhaul. So it was the first major overhaul she had in over 10 years, which I think at that point was probably a record for naval ships.
Okay. Anything you remember during those times, like getting the word about uh, coalition forces moving in to Kuwait and Iraq?
Not. I mean, we heard the news.
Okay.
I don't remember the, play by play or anything like that.
All right.
I do know that Bahrain itself, I felt safer in Bahrain than I would have in New York City. I mean, when you go into Bahrain and you go into a gold souk, and it's a room about this size, and there's literally probably millions of dollars of gold laying everywhere, but nobody's going to steal it. No big security or anything like that.
Now, Bob Hope made his final performance at this time. Do you remember seeing that?
His final performance was on board USS New Jersey.
No. New Jersey wasn't there at
Okay.
the time, but I read that Bob Hope made his final performance during that conflict. Did you get a chance to see that?
I did not.
Okay.
He probably would have went on board the carriers.
Okay. All right. Just to backtrack onto your everyday Navy life. So, what was your battle stations like, or going to general quarters?
From the time I started out till the time I ended up, I was always in the interim.
Okay.
I always went to the interim for general quarters. I mean, I guess when I started out, I stood evaporator watch or throttle watch or something like that, generator watch, and then later on in my career, I was always the engineer and officer of the watch.
Do you remember what was your time limit to get to your battle stations?
What's that?
Did you remember what your time limit was to get to battle stations?
I don't know. I don't recall a time limit, so to speak. We pretty much. I mean, when you're an engineer and you're working on a ship, you actually hear stuff like if the fans start to decelerate, you hear that stuff happening, or if the engines really speed up, you hear that, and you usually get down to the engine room to find out what's going on.
Okay. Anything else about everyday life in the Navy that I didn't ask about that you'd like to share?
Uh, Pretty much, I considered myself extremely lucky to have the duty stations I had, to have the Navy give me the experience to go from enlisted to officer, and I guess one thing I never mentioned was I did mention that I had been stationed at the Naval Academy as an enlisted person. Well, I also got to a tour of Orlando while it was a boot camp, and I got to be the assistant military training officer down there, which is basically the second in charge at recruit training command outside the CO and XO.
Okay. All right. So we're just about to come to the closing questions. So before I ask about your post-Navy life, is there anything that I didn't ask about that you would like to share?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay. So let's talk about your post-Navy life. You got out of the Navy in 1991, correct? I'm sorry, 1999.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Do you remember anything as you were leaving the Navy?
Well, I was. We had left Orlando, and I had gone up to. I was in Mayport, Florida, and we were driving back and forth every night from Mayport to Orlando. Well, it's actually Deltona, Florida. It was about an hour and a half to 2 hour drive, and I had put as my career was winding down, I had put my resume on Monster.com, and one night, as we were driving, I got a call from General Electric, and they asked me if I wanted to, they gave me basically an interview as we were driving down the road, a phone interview. They asked me if I had time. I said, sure, I get nothing but time right now. I was not driving, but and did the interview there, and I actually got hired by General Electric. I basically went through the process and everything, and I was hired. After I started for General Electric, like 2 days after uh, my retirement ceremony, which was I had 3 months of terminal leave. So I was technically, I guess, I was still in the Navy on leave while I was working for General Electric also.
Okay. So okay, go ahead.
Which I ended up, I worked for General Electric for 17 years as a steam turbine engineer, and then retired from there. So now I'm retired, I guess.
Okay. So this is your first time back to the Battleship New Jersey, is it?
Second time.
Second time?
It's the first time I come back. I have a bunch of buddies that a friend of mine, Tom Lingle, had got me into playing a fantasy baseball game. He's gonna kill me if he ever hears this, because he's thinking fantasy. It ain't fantasy. It's real, but it's a sort of like a replay game. And we had Tom, and we had a colonel from the Air Force, a major from the Air Force, my former port engineer when I was on LaSalle, and we had a conglomeration of people that we were all going to meet in Philly and go to the Phillies game. And we got there a little early. We ended up coming aboard to New Jersey and making the tour, which Tom talked about, I guess, somewhere along the lines of a family reunion or something like that. And we're here today at the request of one of his brothers who wanted to come down here and see this tour. He wanted to see the ship also. So today we had 8 of us running around the ship, checking it out.
So what was your initial reaction when you saw the ship again?
Brings back memories.
Okay. Did Navy have any impact in your life that you'd like to talk about?
I think going into the Navy, I got to see the world. Being thrust sometimes into some leadership positions, I got to learn a lot about people. I mean, it was very rewarding. I got to meet a lot of great people in my time. Still keep in touch with quite a few of them. And other than that, I probably would have stayed in the same little hometown, and wanted to see half the stuff I've seen. I love to travel. I love to meet new people, taste new foods, so on and so forth. I wasn't, when I went to school, I really enjoyed math and science, but I didn't have a deep appreciation for the social sciences. But getting around to different countries all over the world, I learned why that stuff was important. I've been to Greece and saw the Acropolis and stuff like that. I've seen the Roman Colosseum. I've seen Arizona Memorial again. Hiroshima, Nagasaki. Just a variety of things all over the world.
Oh, okay. So here's a final question. It's a legacy question. Because this is preserved for future researchers and historians and reporters who could be listening to this 50, maybe even 100 years from now, learning about American history, military history, whatnot. Is there anything you'd like to say, to leave a message to any of these future listeners?
I really got nothing to say. I pretty much said it all during the interview.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, we can conclude this interview. So, thank you for your service, Mr. Bergman, and taking the time to join us. And once again, welcome back to the Battleship New Jersey.
Well, thank you.
Yes, so
You guys have been great. You showed my crew here quite a bit of hospitality today, and I hope they learned a little bit about the battleship today. Now it's off to the ball game, I guess.
Okay, well, I hope you enjoy the game. All right, don't want to hold you too much, but let me just start by saying once again, my name is Hugh Sung, the assistant of the oral history program on board the Battleship New Jersey, docked here in Camden, New Jersey. And today is Friday, July 20th of 2018, and our interview guest was Randy Lee Bergman of Cartersville, Georgia. And this recording, any transcripts, abstracts, or indexes made from the recordings will be stored in the oral history department of the Battleship New Jersey, the Library of Congress Veterans History Project, and the New Jersey State Library Systems. All recordings will be made available to writers, researchers, teachers, and historians. And my name is Hugh Sung, signing off.